Imagine waking up one morning, the alarm blaring, the world outside already moving faster than you can comprehend. You drag yourself out of bed, your mind immediately flooded with a single thought. I must achieve. Not I must live. Not I must breathe. But I must succeed. From the moment your eyes open, the chase begins. The endless, exhausting pursuit of something we call success. But pause for a moment and ask yourself, what is this success you're chasing? Is it a tangible thing, a definable state of being, or merely a shimmering mirage projected onto the horizon of your mind? Society whispers an answer into your ears before you can form the question for yourself. Success means more money, more status, more recognition. Success means climbing higher than the next person, collecting titles, achievements, and praise as though they were currency for the soul. Success, they say, is the proof of your worth. But here lies the paradox that gnaws at you quietly, the paradox you dare not voice aloud. If success is truly the measure of worth, why do so many who attain it feel hollow, restless, or even broken inside? Why do the richest, the most celebrated, the supposedly successful often collapse into despair, addiction, or self-destruction? The great lie is subtle. It doesn't tell you success will bring happiness. It tells you that without success, you have no right to be happy at all. It ties your very existence to external approval, weaving your identity into the fragile fabric of applause and recognition. And so you run faster, work harder, sacrifice more, convinced that someday, if you just reach the right peak, you will finally be allowed to rest, to breathe, to feel enough. But let me ask you, have you ever seen the horizon end? The further you walk, the further it stretches, infinite and unreachable. Success works the same way. Every milestone you achieve reveals. Ours only another in the distance, every victory overshadowed by the looming demand for the next. The applause fades, and in the silence that follows, you wonder, was it worth it? Perhaps you already know the sinking feeling, the promotion that didn't quiet the inner critic, the degree that didn't silence the fear of inadequacy, the admiration that felt strangely hollow once it landed in your hands. Perhaps you've looked at your own reflection and whispered, if this is success, why do I still feel so incomplete? Carl Jung once said that modern man suffers from the loss of meaning, not the lack of resources. Yet we persist in worshipping success as though it were a god that could grant us salvation. And this worship comes at a cost. We sacrifice time, authenticity, relationships, even our health, kneeling at the altar of an illusion. The unsettling question you must face is this: what if the success you're chasing is not only a lie, but a trap, one carefully constructed to keep you running, consuming, and comparing until the day you collapse? What if the very thing you believe will save you is the thing chaining you to perpetual dissatisfaction? Pause here. Let that question settle. Because if it's true, then nearly everything you've been taught about life, ambition, and fulfillment stands on shaky ground. And that realization is terrifying. What if you've been measuring your life with the wrong ruler? What if the metrics you've used, wealth, status, recognition, are not signs of progress, but distractions pulling you further away from what truly matters? And most haunting of all, what if you succeed at everything society tells you to pursue, only to realize at the end that you climbed the wrong mountain entirely? You feel the tension, don't you? The dissonance between the dream you're sold and the quiet voice inside that keeps whispering that something is missing. That VTC voice is growing louder, harder to ignore. It asks questions you don't want to answer. It threatens the very foundation of your identity. And yet, it may hold the only truth that can set you free. So the stage is set. The question is not whether you can succeed, but whether you should. The real question, the dangerous question, the one that may unravel the very fabric of your reality is this: what if the lie of success is the greatest prison of all? And what would it mean? What would it demand of you if you dared to break free? The moment you dare to question the glittering promise of success, a strange unease sets in. It feels almost heretical, doesn't it? As though you've betrayed an unspoken law of society. From childhood, you were conditioned to equate worth with achievement. You were told to bring home good grades, to win the race, to outshine your peers. You were rewarded for performance, not presence, for results, not authenticity. Slowly, invisibly, success stopped being a goal and became your very identity. But beneath this conditioning lies a deeper problem, a psychological and philosophical trap that has ensnared humanity for centuries. Carl Jung warned that what we repress in the unconscious eventually rules us from the shadows, and modern society has repressed a fundamental truth. Your value is not conditional. Instead, we have built a world where every human being must prove themselves endlessly, as though existence itself were an exam that never ends. You are not a human being. You are a resume, a statistic, a brand. This is the hidden problem. Success, as defined by culture, is less about fulfillment and more about conformity. It is not your authentic vision of a good life. It is the script handed to you by parents, schools, corporations, and media. To reject it is to risk ridicule. To accept it is to lose yourself. Friedrich Nietzsche saw this clearly when he spoke of the herd mentality. According to Nietzsche, most people follow the values imposed on them without ever questioning their origin. Success, in the herd's eyes, is obedience disguised as achievement. You climb ladders not because they lead to meaning, but because everyone else is climbing them. And should you dare to step aside, to wander your own path, you are labeled a failure, a dropout, an outsider. Arthur Schopenhauer, with his bleak but piercing clarity, described life as an endless striving driven by the will, a blind force that keeps us perpetually dissatisfied. Success, then, is not an arrival point, but a temporary relief before desire awakens again. The moment one goal is achieved, another arises. The wheel of striving never stops spinning, and we mistake motion for purpose. Pause for a moment and reflect. Isn't this precisely what you feel when you achieve something you thought would finally complete you? Only to feel the hunger return within days, sometimes hours. The diploma gathers dust. The trophy loses its shine. The applause fades, and deep within, a whisper arises. What's next? But here's the twist. This cycle isn't accidental. It's engineered. Aldous Huxley, in Brave New World, described a society that controlled its people not by force, but by distraction, by feeding them shallow pleasures and goals that kept them too busy to question their reality. Doesn't this sound eerily familiar? The endless treadmill of productivity, the obsession with social media validation, the belief that your worth depends on likes, promotions, or net worth. You are trapped in a cultural machine that thrives on your dissatisfaction. The economy grows because you never feel enough. Entire industries profit from your fear of inadequacy. Cosmetics, fashion, self-help, technology, pharmaceuticals. If you were to wake up tomorrow truly believing you were enough as you are, billions of dollars would vanish overnight. Can you see the depth of the trap now? And yet, it's not just external. The roots are also psychological. Gabor Maté, in his work on trauma and addiction, shows how so much of our striving comes from wounds formed in childhood, the subtle or blatant message that love must be earned. Maybe you learned that approval only came when you performed. Maybe affection was withheld until you proved yourself. Over time, this shaped your identity. I'm only lovable if I succeed. So you chase success not for its own sake, but to fill an ancient emptiness. Every achievement is an unconscious plea. Am I enough now? Do you love me now? Will you finally see me? But the answer never lasts, because the problem is not external. It is an internal wound disguised as ambition. This is why success feels both intoxicating and poisonous. It gives you a fleeting high like a drug, but the crash is inevitable. And like any addict, you chase the next fix, hoping it will last this time. But it never does. Here lies the philosophical contradiction. The more you pursue success, as defined by others, the further you drift from yourself. Jean-Paul Sartre called this bad faith, living a life dictated by roles and expectations rather than by authentic choice. You play the part of the successful person, but inside you are hollow. Think about it. How much of your life has been shaped by silent scripts you never chose? Did you truly decide what success means to you? Or did you inherit that definition from the culture around you? When you envision marcher, liking it, are you envisioning your dream or merely society's advertisement of one? This is the root of the problem. The lie of success is not just an illusion. It's a cultural hypnosis reinforced by psychology, philosophy, and economics. It's the invisible hand guiding your desires, shaping your identity, and chaining you to a pursuit that will never end. And the consequences of this hidden force, they are far more devastating than you may realize. For when you live by a false definition of success, you do not simply risk dissatisfaction. You risk your very soul. Picture yourself standing in the middle of a crowded street. Neon signs scream for your attention. Advertisements pulse like sirens promising happiness in exchange for money, status, achievement. Around you, countless others are rushing, each chasing their private definition of success. Yet if you could peer beneath the polished surfaces, you'd see something chilling. Exhaustion etched into their faces, quiet desperation behind their eyes, and a gnawing emptiness they dare not confess. This is the hidden cost of the lie we tell ourselves about success, the consequences we rarely name, but which infiltrate every aspect of our lives. And they are far more insidious than we realize. The personal consequences. On the individual level, the pursuit of success corrodes identity. When your worth is tied to achievement, every failure becomes not a mistake, but a declaration of inadequacy. Miss a promotion, and it feels like you are less of a human. Lose recognition, and it feels as though you cease to exist. Life becomes a fragile balancing act between external approval and internal collapse. Psychologists call this contingent self-worth. It is the condition where your value as a person depends entirely on outcomes. This leads to perfectionism, anxiety, burnout, and depression. Even when you win, the victor is hollow because it never resolves the underlying insecurity, it only postpones it. Like Sisyphus eternally pushing the boulder uphill, you become trapped in endless striving. Your relationships also suffer. When success is your primary compass, people stop being ends in themselves and instead become means to an end. Colleagues become competitors. Friends become benchmarks for comparison. Even loved ones can become symbols of status or obstacles to ambition. Slowly, intimacy erodes. What remains is transactional. A network rather than a community, performance rather than connection. Have you noticed how conversations often circle back to status markers? What do you do? Where did you study? What have you achieved? Rarely do people ask, who are you really? The obsession with success sterilizes authenticity. You learn to present a polished version of yourself, one that looks successful, but may feel alien to your true nature. And then there is the toll on your body. Burnout, stress-related illnesses, insomnia, chronic fatigue. The physical costs of worshipping success are written across hospital beds and pharmacies. Your body becomes collateral damage in the war for external validation. The societal consequences. But the damage doesn't end with individuals. Entire societies warp under the weight of the success illusion. Consider education. Schools no longer cultivate wisdom or curiosity, but train children to become competitive cogs in an economic machine. Creativity is punished, conformity is rewarded. Students learn not to think, but to perform. By the time they graduate, their sense of worth is so entwined with external validation that they cannot imagine a life without chasing grades, promotions, or applause. Workplaces, too, are infected. The obsession with productivity transforms humans into resources valued only for output. The successful employee is the one who sacrifices health, time, and authenticity for the sake of metrics. The unsuccessful one is discarded, regardless of their humanity. In this way, success becomes less about human flourishing and more about economic efficiency. Even culture itself begins to rot. Media glorifies wealth and fame, presenting them as the ultimate markers of meaning. Celebrities are worshipped like gods, their curated lives used as bait to keep the masses running harder, consuming more, dreaming of a success they will never truly touch. Meanwhile, those who do reach the pinnacle often reveal its emptiness, addiction, breakdowns, scandals. Yet rather than learn, society doubles down on the lie. If you feel empty, it's because you're not successful enough. Try harder. And so the cycle continues. The psychological trap. At its core, the unseen consequence of the success lie is psychological slavery. You may believe you are free, that you are pursuing your own dreams, but in truth, your desires are conditioned by forces you do not control. The philosopher Erich Fromm called this the fear of freedom. To be truly free, you must define your own path. But freedom is terrifying. It means you cannot hide behind society's ready-made definitions. It means the burden of meaning rests on your shoulders alone. So instead, many choose the safer prison. To chase success as society defines it, to run in the same direction as everyone else. It feels secure, even if it is soul-crushing. You become a prisoner who not only accepts the chains, but polishes them proudly. The emotional weight. Think of the quiet despair that creeps in when you're alone at night. You scroll through endless feeds, comparing your life to others. You measure yourself against standards you never chose. You feel the weight of not being enough, even though you've achieved more than your ancestors could ever dream of. And still, you are restless, unfulfilled, haunted by the suspicion that you've been chasing the wrong prize all along. Isn't it striking that rates of anxiety, depression, and loneliness are skyrocketing in the most successful nations? Isn't it unsettling that we have more wealth, technology, and opportunity than ever before, yet we feel emptier, more disconnected, and more despairing than generations past? Success, it seems, has failed to deliver the very thing it promised: peace, happiness, meaning. The cliff edge. This is the final devastating consequence. If you continue to chase success without questioning it, you may reach the end of your life only to discover you've been climbing the wrong mountain. You may stand at the summit, surrounded by trophies, wealth, and recognition, and feel the hollowness of a life unlived. As Søren Kierkegaard warned, the greatest tragedy is to succeed in climbing life's ladder, only to find it leaning against the wrong wall. Can you imagine the weight of that realization? To give decades of your life, your energy, your soul, only to realize the reward was an illusion? This is the danger you face if you do not confront the lie now. The tension grows heavier. We've unmasked the hidden roots of the lie, and now we see its devastating consequences: personal, societal, existential. But despair is not the end of the story. A rebellion is possible. A radical alternative exists. The question now is, how do you break free from the lie of success? Imagine for a moment that you've been running on a treadmill your entire life. The machine hums louder with each passing year, its speed increasing, demanding more energy, more sacrifice. At first, you told yourself you were running towards something: success, recognition, fulfillment. But what if you stopped running? What if, for the first time, you dared to step off the machine and face the silence that follows? That silence is terrifying, yes, but it is also the beginning of freedom. The radical shift to rebel against the lie of success, you must first commit an act of radical honesty. You must ask, what if success, as defined by others, is not worth pursuing? This is not a small question. It shakes the very foundation of your identity. But until you face it, you remain enslaved. Nietzsche challenged us to become who we are, to step beyond the herd and carve our own path. His concept of the Übermensch was not a call to domination, but to self-creation, to invent values that are truly your own, not borrowed from society's shallow definitions. To break free means to stop measuring your life with someone else's ruler and begin crafting your own. But how? What does rebellion look like in practice? Step 1. Redefine success. The first step is to tear down the inherited script. Ask yourself, if money, recognition, and status were stripped away, what would still feel meaningful? What moments in your life have given you a taste of something real, aliveness, peace, love, awe? For some, success may mean creating art that no one applauds, but which brings deep fulfillment. For others, it may mean nurturing a family, exploring nature, serving a cause larger than themselves, or simply living with authenticity. Carl Jung spoke of individuation, the process of integrating all parts of the self, light and shadow alike, into a whole. True success, then, is not climbing a ladder, but becoming whole within yourself. It is not external validation, but internal alignment. Step 2. Embrace failure as liberation. Society teaches you to fear failure as if it were death, but failure is not the opposite of success. It is the doorway to authenticity. When you fail by society's standards, you are freed from its grip. The chains of expectation loosen, and you are forced to ask, if I am no longer performing for them, who am I really? Consider the stories of those who found liberation through collapse. Viktor Frankl, imprisoned in Nazi camps, realized that even when stripped of everything, humans retain one freedom: the freedom to choose meaning. He found that survival depended not on external success, but on an inner orientation toward purpose. What if your so-called failures are not curses but invitations to discover a deeper truth about who you are, beyond the applause, beyond the trophies? Step 3. Rebel against comparison. Comparison is the oxygen of the success lie. It keeps you chasing someone else's dream, measuring yourself against illusions projected by media and culture. To break free, you must declare war on comparison. This does not mean isolating yourself, but cultivating an inner compass. Practice asking, am I living in alignment with my values, or am I just chasing approval? Replace the endless, am I better than them, with the braver question, am I true to myself? Jean-Paul Sartre warned that bad faith arises when we live according to roles imposed by others. Rebellion means dropping the mask and standing naked in your authenticity, however uncomfortable that may be. Step 4. Slow down and listen. The treadmill of success thrives on noise, notifications, deadlines, endless movement. To rebel, you must create silence. It is in stillness that you begin to hear the faint but steady voice of your true self. Meditation, journaling, time in nature, these are not luxuries but acts of defiance in a culture that profits from your distraction. In silence, you may begin to hear what your soul actually longs for, and it may not be what the world told you to chase. Step 5. Live with courageous contradiction. Breaking free from the lie does not mean withdrawing from society entirely. It means living courageously within it while refusing to let its false values define you. This is difficult. The people will question you, mock you, even pity you. But remember, rebellion is rarely comfortable. Nietzsche wrote, "The individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe." To stand apart is to bear the weight of loneliness. But it is also to taste a freedom most never know. Your rebellion may look small on the outside, quitting a job that suffocates you, creating art that no one understands, saying no to a promotion, choosing presence over performance. But each small act is a blow against the great illusion. Each step off the treadmill is a step into truth. The reclaimed life. Imagine a life where your days are not dictated by competition or comparison, but by authenticity, where failure is not shame, but teacher, where relationships are not currency, but connection, where your worth is no longer fragile, no longer dependent on applause, but rooted in the simple fact of your existence. This is the rebellion, to reclaim your life from the lie of success and to live in alignment with what is real, what is true, what is uniquely yours. But there is still one step further, one final leap. It is not enough to break free from the lie. You must also uncover the ultimate truth that replaces it. For if the old illusion crumbles and nothing rises in its place, you risk falling into despair. The question that remains is this: if success is a lie, what is the ultimate truth? Imagine for a moment that you have stripped away everything: the applause, the trophies, the numbers in your bank account, the polished identity you've built for others to admire, all gone. What remains when the scaffolding of success collapses? If you stand naked before life itself, with nothing to prove, nothing to earn, nothing to defend, what are you then? This question is terrifying, because it exposes the emptiness behind the illusion. But it is also liberating, because hidden within that emptiness lies the ultimate truth. Your worth has never depended on success at all. The paradigm shift. The lie of success convinces you that meaning is external, that it must be earned or granted by others. The truth is far simpler and far more radical. Meaning is not found but made. It is not delivered by promotions, awards, or approval. It arises when you choose to live authentically, when your actions align with your deepest values, when you embrace existence as it is, rather than as society tells you it should be. Viktor Frankl, having faced the abyss of the concentration camps, discovered that even in the most brutal conditions, humans retain the freedom to choose meaning. He realized that life is not about what happens to us, but about how we respond. Success may crumble, but meaning endures when we live with integrity, compassion, and courage. The ultimate truth, then, is this: you are enough simply because you exist. You do not need to prove it. You do not need to earn it. You do not need to climb anyone's ladder to justify your breath. Your life is not a resume. It is a work of art, unfolding moment by moment. Reclaiming being overdoing. Schopenhauer once wrote that life is driven by the blind force of will, forever striving, never satisfied. The rebellion against success is not to stop striving entirely, but to shift the axis of your existence. From doing to being, when you chase success, you live in perpetual becoming, always reaching for a future that never arrives. When you live in truth, you anchor yourself in being. You discover the richness of the present moment, the laughter of a friend, the texture of sunlight on your skin, the quiet joy of simply existing. This does not mean abandoning ambition or goals. It means stripping them of their false promise. You no longer achieve in order to prove your worth. You achieve because creating, serving, and exploring are natural expressions of a life fully lived. Success becomes not a destination, but a byproduct of authenticity. The end of comparison. Once you internalize this truth, comparison loses its grip. The question is no longer, am I more successful than them? But, am I living true to myself? Imagine the weight that lifts when you no longer need to measure yourself against others. Imagine the peace of waking up not to chase an illusion, but to inhabit your life fully, as it is. This is the freedom Sartre hinted at when he declared that existence precedes essence. You are not defined by roles, by titles, by metrics. You define yourself, moment by moment, through your choices. And when those choices align with authenticity, no external success or failure can touch your core. The sacredness of the ordinary. Here lies another revelation. The ordinary moments you once overlooked are, in truth, sacred. The shared meal, the walk at dusk, the deep conversation with someone who truly sees you, these are not interruptions on the road to success. They are life itself. Nietzsche urged us to embrace amor fati, the love of fate, to not merely accept life as it is, but to love it in its raw, imperfect, fleeting beauty. The ultimate success is not escaping the chaos of existence, but learning to dance with it, to affirm it fully, even its pain. A life reimagined. Close your eyes and imagine a life shaped by this truth. You wake not with dread, but with quiet gratitude. You work not for recognition, but from a place of creation and contribution. You connect with others not to prove your worth, but to share in the mystery of being alive together. You fail, you stumble, and yet you are not diminished, because your worth was never tied to performance. This is not an easy path. To live by this truth is to reject the values that society worships. It requires courage to stand in a world obsessed with success and declare, "I am already enough." But in that declaration lies the deepest freedom, the poetic end. One day, you will reach the end of your journey. The world will not remember every detail of your resume, every accolade, every fleeting measure of success. What will endure are the lives you touched, the authenticity you embodied, the truth you dared to live. The ultimate truth is not that you must succeed, but that you must live, fully, authentically, unapologetically. And in living this way, you discover a paradox. When you stop chasing success, you begin to experience the very fulfillment success promised, but could never deliver. So ask yourself, if today were your last, would you be content with the mountain you have climbed? Or would you wish you had chosen differently, lived more freely, loved more deeply? The time to answer is not tomorrow. It is now. Because success is a lie. But truth is waiting for you, in the quiet, in the ordinary, in the authenticity of a life lived awake. And that truth is this: you have always been enough,